What do you do when the work you've dedicated your life to is taken away overnight? If you're Alicia Contreras-Donello, Allison Eriksen, and Tracy Starr, you run for office. These three former USAID officers didn't come from power. They came from rural Pennsylvania, agricultural California, and Aurora, Illinois. They built careers serving the world's most vulnerable communities, survived conflict zones, and managed billions in taxpayer dollars. Then overnight, they lost their jobs. And instead of stepping back, they stepped forward, straight into Maryland's Democratic primary. And the issues they spent their careers fighting for overseas, creating economic opportunity, strengthening democracies, and ensuring basic human rights, are the exact same battles unfolding here at home. They didn't leave public service, they brought it home. So let's get into it and meet Allison, Alicia, and Tracy. All right, so very excited today to have three individuals on Global Development Interrupted. So welcome, Allison, Tracy, and Alicia.
Hello, everyone. Hola a todos. My name is Alicia Contreras-Donello, and I'm running for delegate for the Maryland House of Delegates to be part of the General Assembly to represent my district of District 14.
My name's Allison Eriksen, and I'm running for Montgomery County Council in Maryland for District 3.
My name is Tracy Starr, and I am running for the U.S. House of Representatives in District 5 in Maryland.
Okay, so because we're a little bit different today, because we got three people, I'm not going to do the fun fact, but I am going to ask you, what did your family think you did for a living while you were working at USAID?
I can start. I think my family thought I was still in the Peace Corps, which I have not been in. I don't even actually want to say for how many years now, but I think that was the only association they had with overseas work. So I think they thought I was still in the Peace Corps.
So I can say that my family did not know what USAID was before I even mentioned it. And so I was asked, what is this? What does development mean? What will you be doing?
I think my parents really actually had no clue. My sisters understood more because they could, Google it and look it up. But a real quick funny story is that when I came back from Afghanistan, I heard my father speaking on the phone to one of my uncles. And he said how he was so proud of me that I was overseas working in Cabo with the Taliban. And I said to him after he hung up the phone, I go, Papi, it's Kabul in Afghanistan, not Cabo in Mexico. And I was not working with the Taliban. I said we were working against them to stabilize the country.
And this is how misinformation starts. Well, it's interesting too, because each of you have very different backgrounds as well. Alicia, why don't you start with your background? Like, where did you grow up? And what do you think led you into development?
Yeah, so I come from very, very humble beginnings. I was born and raised in Aurora, Illinois. I'm a proud daughter of Mexican immigrants, first generation Mexican American. And I was raised in a community, unfortunately, that was affected by violence and poverty and crime. So growing up, I saw a lot of things that children shouldn't see. And I think that kind of raised my awareness of what I did not want to become and what I did not want to, fall into. And, with the opportunities that my parents were able to give us in this country because they work so hard. My father came over and worked in the fields in California for a while before he moved to the Midwest because of the good union jobs that he could possibly get. That really changed the trajectory of how our family was raised and how we grew up. And I mean, very quickly, I realized, the value of hard work because they worked 2, 3, 4 jobs, right? Like between my parents. And I knew that education was going to be the key to making it, right? Making it and living this American dream. And I think that because of education and the opportunities that my parents were able to give us because of their hard work, I'm the living, breathing, walking American dream. And I have pretty much spent my whole life paying that back with almost 2 decades of public service. I guess I didn't understand what that really meant until I was in it and until I made it into being the face of the American people as a U.S. diplomat with USAID. And if you would have asked me as a child, like, what are you going to be with you grow up? I would have never thought that that would have been an option for me. So for me, it has been a life of service because I believed so much in paying it forward and lifting others as we rise. And I will continue to spend my life doing that. So I'm just very thankful for my upbringing and for the opportunities that I've had, despite the last year and setbacks and losing my career overnight.
Tracy, I know that you have a different origin story. What led you into development work?
I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm from Northeast Pennsylvania, a very rural community, very poor community, very isolated. But my mom had a dream. I had a dream. She was a single mom, 3 girls. She worked 96 hours a week. It was crazy. I was at home many times, taking care of my younger sister. My older sister was helping out, by providing meals for us and everything. So we really were the kind of a family who took care of one another. And I remember when I was asked what I want to be when I grew up, I used to always say, I just want to help people. I just want to help people. That's all I want to do. I want to make sure that every injustice is justified and that things are corrected if they were wrong. And so I've kind of lived out that life of service. And it took me a little while to get to USAID. I didn't come out of school knowing that was where I was going to go or where I wanted to go. And so going through school, I realized what USAID was. I realized what it did. And so I set myself on that path.
Allison, I love that your family thought that you were still in the Peace Corps. How did that image of you get you to USAID?
I grew up in Central California. No idea what USAID was. Obviously, most people don't. In fact, Alicia, your dad probably, if he was working fields, probably came through my hometown. We had, it was a very rural area, very heavy into agriculture. And, you know, I was the first one in my family to go to college and came up on my senior year and was just kind of panicking a little bit. Like, I don't know what I want to do now. And I had a friend who was a couple years ahead of me that went into the Peace Corps. And this was 2008. And so we'd heard people saying there was a recession as a college student, didn't really know what that was. It sounded bad. And I thought, well, maybe if I go in the Peace Corps, that's 2 years. I can ride this recession out. And I ended up serving 2 years in Tanzania. And I got there and I loved it. I spent the whole 2 years kind of asking the expats and the other people around, like, how can I do more of this? And everyone I talked to about career paths was telling me, move to DC and look for jobs in international development if that's what you want to do. And that's what I did. I moved to DC where I knew one whole person and got an interview through a friend for a USAID contractor. And that ended up putting me in the Office of Food for Peace working as program assistant.
When I listen to all three of you, the things that come out are you all came from humble beginnings in different ways. You all have this thorough line of faith and of service and wanting to do better for the community. And I just think about the misinformation that was applied to us in 2025 being these DC elites that were money grubbers who were just trying to enrich themselves. And so my question to you guys is, what did you do and why was it important?
Yeah. So what did I do? I was hired into the Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance, the Office on Africa. And my job to start was making sure I was getting trained up to go into Africa in conflict zones, in disaster zones, to help support missions that we sent with people in their worst moments of life. And that for me, that goes back to my story, right? I come from poverty. My mother had nothing. We had nothing. We had to have clothes given to us by family, by church members. Growing up, we rolled pennies to put gas in the car. If the car broke, we had to learn how to fix it ourselves. So coming from that, going into Africa for me was like going home in many ways to help the people who were like me when I was a kid, somebody I wanted to see, and extending a helping hand. And I remember getting there and getting that job and saying to myself, wow, I can finally do this. And it was changing my life. It was giving me a whole new perspective. It gave me the ability to give back. I had nothing. I came from nothing, and I was going to help those who had nothing.
So I worked mostly on South Asia. And when I started, they had an ongoing program that was to train disaster responders in those countries. And this program not only just trained disaster responders in these countries, they trained them to like international standards so that if there was a disaster in that part of Asia, responders from other countries could get there and they would know how to work with each other. They wouldn't be working with different systems. They could just jump in. I'd been 22 or 23 when there was the earthquake in Turkey. Some of our teams that we had trained in Asia were able to respond to that earthquake because they had gotten like international certification as search and rescue. So they were able to go and help pull people out of the rubble in Turkey. And we like that for me was like, we did it. We spent a lot of years and a lot of time investing in this one little program. And as a result, these countries that had for years needed international disaster response for an earthquake, a flood, what have you, were now able to provide it to other countries. And maybe someday, God forbid, something happens here and we're going to need help. They're going to be able to come and help us. And for me, that is the full circle. That's the dream, right? In development, you do something long enough to where you not only don't have to do it anymore, but they can do it for themselves and they can come do it for you if you need it.
Yeah, I remember one of my guests talked about sunsetting the need for foreign assistance versus sunsetting foreign assistance. And that's a beautiful example of that. Also, a cohesive global response to disaster that supports everyone. Alicia, do you have a story you want to share?
So Mr. Rogers always said that his mom told him, find the helpers. Whenever you're in trouble, whenever you need help, go find the helpers. I mean, we were the helpers. We still want to be the helpers, right? And whether we win or lose this election, I think that we're going to continue to be that because that's just part of our DNA. And I think that, going into the Foreign Service, going into USAID, in my first assignment in El Salvador, which was then replicated when I served in Tanzania, the thing that I constantly saw as an economic development expert, right, is that when we focused on women and economic development on women, we saw huge changes in the advanced nutrition of the family, like the children, and we saw how it helped educate then the future. In those two instances, in El Salvador and in Tanzania, in our programs that were focused on entrepreneurship and workforce development on women, it's no surprise. And I think that we've seen this over and over in all the assessments that we make. When we put money into their hands, it is like it pays itself forward exponentially. And I remember in that first assignment in El Salvador that we went to a women's workforce development program, and a woman stood up and came up to me and my boss and was crying, so grateful to USAID for the opportunity to learn new skills and work, because for the first time, her children had something to eat every day, and her children were now able to go to school. And I remember just starting to cry. And I get that. I get that now, especially as a mother. Like, would do anything for my children. And it's so true that, the programs that we developed and executed and the communities that we served It was a testament to human perseverance of what can be done when you just give someone opportunity. And I will never forget that in El Salvador, in Tanzania, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Libya, that the impact that we make by one small action replicates itself 1,000 times over. And I'll forever be grateful for those experiences and for the love that we were shown by these communities and how they treated us and took us in. And I'll be forever be grateful for that kindness. And I hope that the work that we did won't die just because USAID isn't there. I think that we will continue to still see some of those good things paid forward because they got that opportunity.
And Alicia, you weren't in the Bureau of Humanitarian Assistance, or were you? No. Okay.
No, I was not. I was the deputy for the Libya mission because I'm a foreign service officer. So I was serving overseas with my family, with my 2 small kids when everything went down. And we don't have a physical presence in Libya. So we were actually, the Libya External Office is what it was called, is located at the embassy in Tunis, Tunisia. So I physically lived in Tunisia, but I would fly in and out of Libya.
I feel like an anchor for your work might just be crazy places. Like,
I know.
other
Let
than
me
Cabo.
I know. You know what? I'm not a glutton for punishment, trust me, but like working in these very complex environments just gave me so much more motivation. I think like Tracy was saying, like, it was a family of service because she felt like she was helping other people like her, like helping communities like hers. And that was definitely in my soul and why I chose to work in some of these most difficult places because I knew they needed the most help, right? And for me, like it was the work that I was supposed to do. It's international development. We're supposed to help the most vulnerable people. These tours impacted me so much, especially Afghanistan, because I actually survived a 23-hour attack on the US Embassy in Kabul when I was there. And talk about like it really reinforcing what I was here to do. I was here to serve. I was here to pay it forward, help other communities that need it the most. So you're putting your life on the line for your country. And I don't regret it one bit, but it just solidified the reason why my life has been dedicated to public service and why it was so important for me to continue to do international development and to move USAID's mission forward.
I find it interesting too when you were saying the attack on the base only made it stronger for you in terms of the work that you were doing. I had a similar experience in Peace Corps where we had a home invasion and we were held hostage and all of this stuff happened to us. And I just thought, well, if I have to live this, like this community lives this all the time, and I'm not going to let these jerks who are using violence to intimidate us and take things from us keep us from serving the community here. Because I had a lot of things that I needed to get done. But I was like, I'm going to get this done, and these jerks aren't going to stop me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that is kind of like a perfect way to explain why you were even running for office at this point. It doesn't matter that they ended our career. I'm not going to let these jerks stop me from continuing to serve. And I think that, I can speak for Allison and Tracy, that we are determined, right, to see that change that we want to see, right? Like to be the change that we want to see in the world.
Yeah, I agree. Guys, let's not let these jerks stop us from making good change in the world. So, with that transition, let's talk about what you guys are doing now. You're all running as candidates in Maryland, and you all had different positions at USAID. How did you find each other?
And I'll say this, when I first decided, like I was the only person in this race here when I registered, and I felt very isolated and alone. And so I started this group of us on Signal, Former Feds Run, we're called. And I had met another woman running for Congress at the time, Megan O'Rourke. She's running in New Jersey. And so she and I were like, we've got to do something where we support one another. And so we found all these former feds running across the country, and then I got Alicia's message, and then I'm in a merge with her, and I'm like, oh my God, it's amazing. I have a group here. Finally, I have someone here that, gets it, who's in Maryland, who understands Maryland politics, who understands all of this, and who is former USAID. And I felt I made a sigh of relief.
USAID, we're a resilient bunch. We are a resilient bunch, especially after this, lived trauma. We've kind of all been there to support each other as best we can. And I can tell you that I had seen that there was a person in Montgomery County, where I lived in Montgomery County, Maryland, running for county council. I did not know her, and it was not my district. And I was just like, I don't care if she's USAID. We have to go support her. Let's go. We kind of just started talking to each other. I said, hey, there's this person, Allison, and there's this Tracy. And then we kind of all got together. We started a group chat. And then we were like, all right, here we are. Like the tres amigas, we are the group. We are the trifecta, the force to be reckoned with in Maryland. And we've just been that support system for each other, because we are living a very similar experience, from the gutting of our agency to now trying to fight and break in to a political institution that is so strong and difficult to get into.
I want to dig into that a bit more. What have you found to be the most surprising piece of this new chapter of running for political office? Because you've mentioned a very strong political institution in Maryland. What do you mean by that?
My seat is currently held by one of the longest serving Democrats in the United States House of Representatives. He's been there since 1981. He's so ingrained in the machine that exists in Maryland and in Democratic politics that it's been really difficult to even, scratch the surface of his reputation, what he has set up, what he has built. He decided to retire. A week later, he endorses someone. And this someone is another person who is like him, been involved in local and state politics for quite a while. And, here I am in a race against this machine. And so what it's done is it's really opened my eyes to just how difficult the system is for just any person to break into. And how if you are not part of that and you're coming in as the outside force, then you're pushed to the side and nobody takes you seriously. The other things that surprised me a lot is just how much money is really involved in politics and running for office. It's crazy how much money is in the coffers for some of these people to just run a political campaign. And
I was just going to say, Alicia, something that you said in a previous conversation has stuck with me, and I think speaks to what Tracy is also saying here, where you said choice was taken from us with the dismantling of USAID, and we want to bring choice back to the ballot box, and we're finding it to be so difficult. Can you talk more about the meaning behind that for you?
Yes, I was referring to that institution, what I keep calling the political machine, because it's very clear to me that it's really not about qualifications. Because I think if you put any of our CVs up against any other of the candidates, we are forces to be reckoned with. They speak for themselves. It's more of have you put in your time? It's not your time yet. We don't know you. Who are you? And I guess call me naive. I didn't think that that's really how democracy worked, right? For me, it's about the voter and their choice of who's the best qualified and who represents or will represent our community the best. And I feel like, again, that choice to participate and to actually be a candidate to be reckoned with is diminished, right? Because we are not long-standing names, well known in the local political machine, right? And each of us are struggling with that.
Yeah. That must be incredibly infuriating as well, especially because you all are such badasses, in the jobs that you
Thank
did.
you.
I mean, come on, guys. You mentioned like the, Bureau of Humanitarian Assistance. You guys are going into very dangerous areas. Alicia, you just lived in dangerous areas.
I mean, September 13, 2011, I ran from RPGs and small arms open gunfire across a huge U.S. Embassy compound in Kabul. So yeah, I understand um what it is to run and be a big freaking badass.
To
Yeah.
serve your
For this
country.
country.
Yes.
For this country. Let's not forget that it's not just about the town we live in, the state we live in. We served the American people and brought the best of the American people to the world.
All right. So let's talk about the skills that you're going to bring for the people of Maryland. Alicia, we're with you right now. So tell me about what do you want to do with the seat that you're running for?
So much. I feel like we're at a crossroads in this country with a lot of what's going on that personally affects me directly, right? And a lot of other fired feds, right? But not even just fired feds. We find, that there's that high unemployment rate. So a lot of us are directly dealing with affordability issues. And I did economic development for a very long time. That's what I got brought in to do. I was a private enterprise officer in the Foreign Service. And so I had to learn how to develop strategy around economic development and how to design programs, implement and execute, right? And I manage billions of dollars of, taxpayer dollars. So I'm bringing that experience at a time where it's very necessary right now, especially on economic development because of affordability, right? Finding creative ways to make things affordable, like with renewable energy. I worked on renewable energy in Pakistan. I worked on public-private partnerships that made these things happen. And I can bring those skills here to bear to create more of that, to find new ways to create low-cost energy. And in regards to what's affecting, like, I'm Latina, right? I'm Mexican American. My community is directly being attacked by what's going on in this country with ICE. And for me, that is just a non-starter. Like, no, I'm afraid to be out in the street with my kids, around folks who may hear me speak Spanish and say, oh, this person is illegal. Let's go ahead and round her up. I don't want to traumatize my children any further than what they had to experience coming back from a forced repatriation, because they don't care if I say I'm an American citizen. They'll take me and figure it out later. As a US diplomat, they're not going to care. They're not going to care. So, continuing to fight for basic human rights, being treated like a human. We talked about humanity earlier. I think that that's just like fallen by the wayside in a lot of aspects. Folks aren't being treated with human dignity. And I want to bring that back to pursue and support legislation that protects basic human rights and protects these most vulnerable communities, just like we did at USAID.
I mean, when I listen to you talk, I hear a lot about creating safety and security and the availability of resources for the community.
Opportunity for everyone, right? It doesn't matter where you're from or what your status is.
You also have worked, you've just mentioned Pakistan, Libya, Afghanistan. Are there parallels that you see with the work that you were doing to create that same safety, security, and opportunity in those countries now with what you're seeing in the United States?
Absolutely. I mean, coming back after serving abroad, I tell people, this is not the country that I left. And these are the exact same issues that we were dealing with overseas in these developing countries that we are now seeing arise in our country. When it comes to democracy and governance, stabilization, protecting rights, healthcare, education, security, all of these things that USAID worked to strengthen and develop overseas, we are now having to do that here. So it's not even just a parallel. It's like exact like mirror of each other. I mean, I don't know what Allison, Tracy, you want to chime in, but it's very much like we are the perfect candidates to step into these roles, not only because of our lived experience, because we come from these communities, but also because we did this exact thing overseas, managing millions and billions of taxpayer dollars. And now we can do that here at home.
Alicia was more senior than me, so I merely managed hundreds of millions of dollars in programs and not billions. But like this, like she said, the issues that I was working on at USAID are the exact same issues we're working on now. I worked on the awards for Pakistan after the 2022 flood, when a third of the country was underwater and people just watched their houses be swept away. And you know what buildings were still standing after that flood were the schools that USAID had built a decade before, because we were using higher level standard building practices than what were being used locally. And those schools ended up being the emergency shelters for those communities because they were the only buildings left. I was trying to help people recover their livelihoods after those floods. We were doing training, job training, getting people some money so they could rebuy the tools or the livestock that they had had before, so they could go back, either start a new job or go back to what they've been doing before, if it was, farming, raising animals. And what are people looking for now? They need jobs. They need job training. They need education. The parallels are there, and these are problems that we know how to solve. This is what your local government does, is they provide services and they collaborate with organizations that are already working with those communities to provide those services that the government wants them to have. That's exactly what I was doing at USAID.
How did you choose the county position as the one that you wanted to run for?
After I lost my job, I started going to the Hill every week with other fired feds, and we were going into senators' offices and we were demanding meetings, and we were trying to explain to them the importance of these programs that we'd managed, whether they were USAID, Department of Education, Health and Human Services, whoever was there with us who could talk about their work and why we needed to stop the rifts and save these programs. And I just did not see the level of concern that I felt the situation warranted. A lot of, mostly we're talking to the staff, sometimes to the senators themselves, but even talking to the senators, they seem to think that we could treat this as a normal situation, that this was all show, that, eventually the midterms will come around, they'll bring it back. And that really frustrated me, because when you're talking about people's lives, and people don't live their lives in election cycles. I felt these people are too disconnected from who they're representing and what's going on around them. So I took that and decided that the local level was where I can have a greater impact.
Tracy, how did you choose that you wanted to be a House rep for Maryland? What was that decision process?
So, like Allison, I was also spending time on the Hill advocating. And I remember sitting in our senator's office, and he said what Allison said, we can't do anything until the midterms. And I was like, but I just lost my job. I don't have income. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I said, worse than that is I have a husband who works for the Department of Education, and they're coming for them too. I was like, my whole family stands on the line right now. That's not good enough for me. And so I just got sick of it. And the worst part is that senator and one of the other reps in Maryland were out on the front lines. They were out advocating for us every day. I still see them out advocating and listen to them everywhere. My rep was not. He was sitting back and he was relaxing, and he was putting out newsletters saying, oh yeah, I'm advocating for you. But he wasn't out there every day advocating for us. And so I felt like everybody let us down. And I said, Congress is the only place that can fix this. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to Congress. That's it. And I said, so I went down and I registered. I registered to run. I didn't care. And ever since that day, I keep getting signs and, people talking to me saying, oh, you'd be so good at this. We really need you in office. You would be so good at this. I'm like, I know I would, because I'm here for you. I'm not here for me. There's nothing about me in this. Nothing. I would never choose to put myself through this unless it was for a really good reason. Helping people. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here.
What is the one or two things that you hope listeners take from this episode?
I'll go. I hope that one thing they'll take away is that folks like us are still here and we haven't given up. Last year when I lost my job, I got really depressed and it was really difficult. Being able to run for office has been a great opportunity for me, you know, to try to win the office, but also to connect more with my community because as a candidate, people want to talk to you. They want to find out more about you. And I've in turn been able to tell people more about USAID and the great work that we did and that I hope we'll get to do again someday.
Alicia?
I would love to see a future where money is taken out of politics because that is a huge barrier for entry, especially for us, because we don't have those established networks that are wealthy and well built in order to pour in to a campaign. And so that distorts representation because there's only a certain group or certain type of person that can pursue public office. And so I would love to see that change. And I will do my best at my level to make that change because I believe that the government should be representative of the people across the board. Again, what Tracy said, like it's not about me, it's about the community. And we're all public servants at heart. So we're not here for titles. I'm not here for a title. I had a title. I was a diplomat and I still have a title. I'm a mother, I'm a spouse, and I'm a longtime public servant. So I will continue to take that forward. And in regards to choice, I want to make it very clear that I want there to be choice in who you choose to represent you. And I want there to be choice for anyone to step into the ring to be representative of the good that they want to see. And I think that in this moment in time, people don't want to be told who to choose. They want to make a choice because our choices are being taken from us more and more every day. And the power that we have is that power in our vote. And so I hope people do not shy away from voting and say, well, my vote doesn't count, because it does. And it counts so much right now. So I hope people register to vote and show up at the booth because our power is in that one small piece of paper in our vote.
Tracy, what do you hope they'll take away as a last message here?
What I would hope is that there's still hope for the future, that my kids have what I was afforded. I'm also a product of the American dream. I pulled myself up by my bootstraps and on I went. And I got there. I can say I achieved my dream. I want that for my kids. I want that for Alicia's kids. I want that for your kids. Everybody's child should be allowed to do that. This is the land of opportunity, is it not? And look, I was humanitarian, right? I always start with, we're all human. We are all human. So at the end of the day, humanity. That's my hope. Humanity, that it takes hold and it doesn't go away again.
Guys, yes, please.
This has been very cathartic. And I have to say, I'm pointing out the obvious, but we're all women here. Women stepping up to make changes all over the world and this country specifically today. I mean, I am so proud to be in this group of women that are like, I'm no more. I'm not putting up with this. No more. And every time somebody says, well, how are you going to do that? How are you going to do this with children? Or how are you going to do, did you talk to your husband? Like, let's not move backward. We won't go back, right? Only
It so
forward.
enrages me. Did you talk to your husband? No. Is he talking to me? Yes.
I had a conversation with my husband and he said, you know what? It doesn't matter what I say because you're going to do whatever you want to do anyway. So I will support any decision you make.
I always say behind a strong woman is a man who can handle it, but I mean, look, you can't silence us anymore, and I said to my husband, I'm going to really need your support. He's like, what do you mean? I said, I don't even know what I mean, but just say yes.
And yes, Tracy, my husband gets voluntold for things also. He found himself knocking doors the other day. He's like, I thought I was just coming to the pre-meeting. And I was like, no, here's some flyers. There's the address.
There we go.
I love it. All of you, thank you so much for joining me on Global Development Interrupted. I have loved talking with all three of you. You're a strong group of women, and I look forward to seeing what happens in the future. It's got to be something good with the three of you out there. Thanks for listening. And hey, if you're in Maryland, early voting runs June 11th through the 18th, and primary election day is June 23rd. These women are awesome and on the ballot, and they are ready. Are you? Go out and vote. And don't forget to like this episode and follow GDI wherever you listen so you never miss a moment. Until next time.